So now we have to look at the educational skirmish between two formidable women, Catherine Birbalsingh, the self-styled Britain's strictest head teacher, and Bridget Phillipson, the education secretary accused of harbouring a Marxist ideological dislike of academies. This isn't merely a debate about how schools are run, but a full-throated ideological clash about what education is for and who should control it. At the heart of this dispute lies a question that has divided politicians and educators for decades. Should schools be given the autonomy to set their own standards, curricula and discipline policies, or should they be bound by the guiding hand of the state? Birbalsingh, the head of the Michaelis Community School, represents a radical departure from the soft-touch, child-centred educational models favoured by 1960s-plus progressive politicians. Her school, which has achieved astonishing GCSE results compared to Eton, despite serving a deprived community, is built on the philosophy of rigorous discipline, knowledge-driven curricula, and traditionalist values. And in her open letter to Phillipson, she lambasts the educational secretary for failing to understand the successes of academies and for attempting to strip them of their freedoms. Her criticisms are sharp and unrelenting. According to Birbalsingh, Phillipson is imposing a rigid national curriculum without even defining what it entails, forcing schools to overhaul their entire teaching structures for an unknown bureaucratic whim. The academy model, which allows head teachers the freedom to hire unqualified teachers and set their own disciplinary codes, is being suffocated under Labour's plans. Birbalsingh paints a picture of a minister who is either ideologically blind or woefully uninformed, unwilling to acknowledge the role that school autonomy has played in driving up standards. But what of Phillipson's position? Her proposed reforms aim to reintroduce a degree of state oversight over academies, arguing that without regulation, standards become uneven and accountability is lost. And Labour has historically been sceptical of the academy model, viewing it as a conservative-led privatisation of education that undermines local authority schools. By enforcing national standards, Labour claims to be ensuring that all children, regardless of where they study, receive a consistently high quality education. The problem is that isn't the reality. The reality is that all children, regardless of where they study, receive a second-rate quality education. This is where the ideological battle crystallises. To Birbalsingh, Phillipson's approach is symptomatic of left-wing statism, an assumption that bureaucrats in Whitehall know better than head teachers in the classroom. And she argues that social mobility thrives when schools have the autonomy to innovate, to set their own behavioural standards, to shape the curricula around the needs of the communities. And by contrast, Phillipson's reforms suggest that too much freedom leads to inequality, with some schools thriving while others founder. The rhetoric used by Birbalsingh is also worth analysing. By accusing Phillipson of Marxist leanings and a hatred of academies, she taps into a long-standing conservative critique of Labour, that it is suspicious of individual excellence, preferring mediocrity enforced by regulation. And in contrast, Labour supporters might see Birbalsingh as emblematic of an elitist, draconian model of education that works well for the exceptionally driven but alienates the struggling. Yet there is an elephant in the room. Educational policy should ultimately be about what works, and England's schools have seen remarkable improvements in international rankings, with academy schools playing a major role in that success. But there is a risk that these successes are isolated, benefiting only those schools fortunate enough to have strong leadership and strict discipline. And Phillipson argues that academies might need oversight to ensure that all students receive a fair education, and Birbalsingh argues that such oversight stifles the very conditions that make success possible. The question we must ask is whether standardisation guarantees quality or whether autonomy fosters excellence. Is Phillipson ensuring fairness, or is she levelling down? Is Birbalsingh championing innovation, or is she advocating a system that leaves some students behind? Ultimately, this is not just a fight about schools, it's a fight about philosophy. Is education best shaped by the state or by those on the ground? Is freedom in education a recipe for inequality or a prerequisite for success? And crucially, will Phillipson accept Birbalsingh's challenge for a public debate? The ideological battle lines are drawn. Where do you stand?